we're going to recap that Ravens-Giants fiasco. We're going to talk about the Ravens-Jets matchup. And last but not least, diesel engine, baby. Diesel engine. Saints. Great Saints. We're going to talk about the great Saints matchup against the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. Now, let's get started. The recap, the Ravens-Giants recap, that fiasco. Fraudway Joe had a decent game, just as I suspected. He always does well after adversity, when the eye's on him, after he takes his Adderall or Concentral or whatever psychotropic drug that he's on for his ADD. He usually comes out a little bit better the following week. He had a decent game, but that loss was directly on Hard Boiled and P-Brain. Hard Boiled, and by the way, before we go any further, raise your hands if you really thought that Joe Flacco was going to win that game during money time. Put your damn hands down. All right? Dean, we're going to put that on Dean P-Brain, and John Hardboy. And I'm going to come back to it. My man Sid Barry, coach over at Mount St. Joe, youth league coach. A youth league coach was able to diagnose what happened. And he couldn't wait to get the information to me, to expose P-Brain. Now, again, the Ravens stole defeat from the jaws of victory. They had the game won. But they're so rigid and unable to adjust, and it burnt them. The whole defensive scheme for that game was to not allow Odell Beckham Jr. to win that game. And for the most part, they did that. First half, third quarter, even when Jimmy Smith went down, and what's my guy's name? Sharice, the other cornerback. I'll just call him that because I'm going to stop calling him by his name. Weddle, he was back there, and my man who should have been traded or released weeks ago, can't call his name, number 21. I'll just say number 21 for the Ravens. They did a subpar job defending the Giants, but they did just enough to win the game. But the Giants' superior coaching staff, what they did, as Sid Barry pointed out, good call, Coach said, what he pointed out was they slid Odell Beckham Jr. to the slot, from out wide to the slot. And Dean P-Brain couldn't figure out what to do. As opposed to putting them in a zone, a cover one, a cover two, to not expose the rookie cornerback that they had playing over top of him, they stayed in a man. And Odell Beckham got loose. And he got loose, and there was no adjustment until the very end when he got loose again and burned him. That goes directly on Dean P-Brain and John Hardboiled, because it was Hardboiled's decision to have that guy coaching the defense. And now it's starting to rear its ugly head how inadequate this coach is. He wanted to have his guys in there. If you have your guys in there, you have to be able to coach your guys up. And it's not happening because he has inferior coaching, inferior player. I'm not going to say inferior players. He just doesn't have a lot of alpha personalities because he's unable to manage those personalities. And it's starting to rear its ugly head. He's unable to control that. So, to put it in a nutshell, that's on the defensive coordinator because and John Hardboiled, because there was no adjustment made. And I'm going to point this out. Fraudway Joe has just come up with another injury when it looks like the season is coming to a roaring end. I'm going to say burn and crash. That's what's about to happen. Now, I don't think he was as hurt as he was last year, but I'm not a doctor. Now this season looks like it's going down the tubes. I'm not a doctor again, but he's starting to develop a pattern. Enough of that recap. Let's talk about the Ravens against the Jets. We're going to start off with the matchups. Fraudway Joe against Ryan Fitzpatrick or Geno Smith, okay? Now, Fraudway Joe's going to have an offensive line that's lacking a few of their starters. That's going to be difficult. But I think that Fraudway Joe is still the better player opposite Ryan Fitzpatrick. But the problem is the Jets started playing Geno Smith last week, and we all know that the Ravens don't do well when playing against substitute quarterbacks. If you want to check that, fact check, as they say. Fact check the Ravens playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers when their first two quarterbacks were hurt and they started Charlie Batch. And Charlie Batch fried those birds. Lexington market style. Ravens passing against the defensive backfield of the Jets. My prediction is that Darrelle Revis is going to regain his youth. He's going to look like Darrell Green, the Pro Bowler, and Buster Skrine is going to have a good game because Broadway Joe's going to lay one up for him. Terrence West against the Jets defense. Terrence West is not going to have a good game this week, and it's not going to be his fault. It's going to be because he's playing behind subpar offensive linemen, and Broadway Joe is not going to be able to take any pressure off of him by completing a few passes. It's not going to be a good day for Terrence West. Matt Forte, along with Nick Mangold, that man-child, snapping the ball for the Jets against the Ravens defensive line. They're going to manhandle that defensive line because they're missing a few starters and Terrell Suggs being hurt. That's going to take some pressure off of the offensive tackles of the Jets. Elvis Dumerville still hurt. That's going to take some pressure off of the offensive tackles. C.J. Mosley, if he comes back, he's still not going to be where he should be. That's going to take some pressure off of those offensive guards. So, with that being said, Matt Forte is going to go nuts. And whoever's passing the ball, may it be Geno Smith or Ryan Fitzpatrick, they're going to have a pretty good game. If it's Geno Smith, it's going to be a tough day for the Ravens because he's a little bit more mobile and he'll create new passing lanes. Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker against the Ravens defensive backfield. I'll call Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker a knife. I'll call the Ravens defense Swiss cheese. They're going to cut holes all through them. There's not going to be much that they can do because there's not going to be a pass rush with the exception of Michael Pierce Jr. Again, somebody in the organization has been listening to old crazy Coach Britt. Coach's Corner. Somebody's watching because Michael Pierce is getting a lot more reps and he's representing. Again, the fat cats who are other guys on the defensive line, they're taking note too because they're playing a little bit harder. But this guy, Michael Pierce Jr., is a little bit hungrier. My prediction, the Jets are going to win, and I think they're going to win by 6. That's my prediction. We're going to talk about the great Saints. Well, you know what? This matchup, again, is going to be about Drew Brees, Brandon Cooks, and Mark Ingram against the Kansas City Chiefs team. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be those three against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't think they're going to fare well because they're playing in Arrowhead Stadium. The conditions aren't going to be ideal as they are in our stadium. That grass is going to slow the game down a little bit. Kansas City, along with, what's my guy's name? Jamal Charles. He's going to run the ball up the yin-yang against the Saints defense. That's Swiss cheese defense. So again, it's Drew Brees, Brandon Cooks, Mark Ingram against the whole team. But Drew Brees being the best quarterback in the league, he's going to keep the Saints in the game as long as he can. My prediction, the Saints will go down at Arrowhead Stadium 30-24. Drew Brees is going to do all that he can. But once they realize that the Saints are going to have to pass the ball every possession, they're going to throw a few gimmick defenses, and Drew Brees will probably throw an interception. Crucial time. But he's the best in the league. He's simply the best, better than all the rest. That's it for Coach's Corner. Hit a whole lot of topics.